Are we about to see another defense attorney shakeup for Diddy's trial? Well, according to a new report, we are. And for those who follow a lot of trials, this name is super familiar. I'm Elizabeth Millner with Law&Crime. Now, the rumor mill is swirling that Mark Geragos, yes, the Mark Geragos, is poised to take the lead at the defense table come trial. Now, as I'm talking about this, the official paperwork hasn't been filed. But as this new report suggests, that could be coming very soon. Mark Geragos has been practicing law since before I was born. But even I'm super familiar with the high-profile clients he's represented, like Winona Ryder in her shoplifting case, Michael Jackson, Nicole Richie, Chris Brown, Hunter Biden, Cain Velasquez, Scott Peterson, the Menendez Brothers when they were seeking a retrial, and that's just some of the big names he's represented. The list truly goes on, and now he's seemingly adding Diddy to that list too. His reported addition comes a couple months after one of Diddy's lawyers unexpectedly dropped off the case. Back in February, Teny Geragos made a stunning announcement he was dropping from the case. Now, in paperwork filed on February 21st, Teny Geragos wrote, quote, "For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawals is filed so that Sean Combs may move forward with his defense and to commence jury selection and trial without any delay. As a result of discussion with lead counsel Mark Geragos, this motion for withdrawal of counsel is filed. While I am aware that the local rule requires an application for withdrawal of counsel is supported and granted, there are sufficient reasons related to the protections afforded by the attorney/client privilege for brevity in my application for withdrawal as counsel in this case. Although I have provided Sean Combs with the high level of legal representation expected by the court, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs," end quote. And the judge signed off on that motion. Now, despite rumors swirling on social media about why Teny Geragos quit, reports have suggested there was a clash over defense strategy, but nothing's confirmed. So let's take a look at who will be sitting at the defense table, along possibly with Mark Geragos. Well, we already know Mark Geragos will be there. According to online documents, he's still listed as lead counsel. There's Jason Anthony Driscoll, who worked alongside Alexandra Shapiro at Shapiro Arado Bach LLP. Alexandra Shapiro joined the team back in October, while Jason joined back in January. There's also Ana Maria Esteval, who joined in October. And of course, there's Teny Geragos, who's been working alongside Mark Geragos since Diddy's arrest in September. Now, if you're wondering if Teny is related to Mark Geragos, you're correct. So we could see a father-daughter duo working together at trial. But here's the thing. While Mark Geragos was in an interview with TMZ's Harvey Levin, he played coy about the whole rumor, despite Harvey saying he's known about this for weeks. Geragos said, "I've represented Sean on and off for 15 years. My daughter represents Sean. I don't traffic in rumors." To which Harvey responded, "Your client is telling people you're representing him in the trial." Harvey even bet his house on it. Now, Geragos never confirmed and pretty much deflected, so the rumors continue. But if I had to take bets, and I'm not a betting person, I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and we'll see Mark Geragos at trial. But let's talk about TMZ for a sec. TMZ did a mock trial for the documentary The Downfall of Diddy, His Defense. They showed both the prosecution's case and the defense's case from what we know now. But it was before his two superseding indictments, so it was only the first three charges: racketeering conspiracy, transportation to engage in prostitution, i.e. the Mann Act, and sex trafficking. Now, I won't spoil the verdict, but let's just say that the mock jurors brought up a lot of questions during their deliberations, like consent, many questions about payment, so it's not a clear win for the prosecution. But it's also not a clear win for the defense. Now, I bring this up because there were familiar faces that gave analysis in the documentary, like Mark Geragos, but also Mark Geragos. So maybe for both Marks, it's a practice run until the real thing, which is supposed to start in the matter of weeks. And Mark Geragos has been very vocal about Diddy's case beyond TMZ. But I mean, he's a well-respected attorney and legal analyst. Of course, people want his opinion, right? Now, last month, after Diddy's homes were raided by the feds, Mark Geragos said it was a shock and awe message to pressure potential witnesses to cooperate with authorities. After CNN released a shocking surveillance video of Diddy beating Cassie in the Intercontinental Hotel in LA, Geragos was skeptic about the timing and the motivation behind the leak, even telling Harvey Levin, his co-host on the Two Angry Men podcast, why would CNN alter a piece of media that's so damaging? And just want to point out here, despite the defense's objections to have the video admitted as evidence, we all remember when Diddy put out that apology video while still not saying Cassie's name.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you got to do that. I was f***ed up. I mean, I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now. I went and I sought out professional help. I had to go into therapy and go into rehab. Had to ask God for his mercy and grace. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
That video has since been deleted from Diddy's social media page, but the government says the surveillance video is critical to their case. So many legal experts want to know, will it be admitted? As for Mark Geragos, again, online records don't list him as an attorney. But when you have TMZ's Harvey Levin openly voicing his surety Geragos will be joining the defense team, let's just say it might be happening. Another defense shakeup as we're just weeks away now from Diddy's high-profile trial. Let's bring on criminal defense attorney Brian McMonagle. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. What's your reaction to Mark Geragos possibly joining the Diddy defense team?
Well, the hits keep coming. I mean, I think it's a great addition if it is true. Mark is a phenomenal lawyer, brilliant guy, and certainly no stranger to the spotlight. He has handled some significantly high-profile cases over as many years, and brings a wealth of experience and I think wisdom to the defense team. If it actually is true that he's joining it, and I think he'd be a perfect fit in a high-profile case like this.
And what do you think he will add to the defense team? Because, you know, Mark Agnifilo, his daughter, Teny Geragos, not Mark Agnifilo's daughter, Teny Geragos, but Mark Geragos' daughter, is also on the defense team. Alexandra Shapiro's on the defense team. So it's really a number of high-powered attorneys already on there. But what do you think Mark is going to add if he is going to be that added addition to the team?
You know, that's a really good question. I mean, Mark is a really able trial lawyer, an excellent cross-examiner. Whether they're bringing him in just to quarterback or to, you know, just play a role. You know, you remember the Simpson case and how you had all of these really wonderful lawyers assembled. And then really at the last minute, it became Johnny Cochran, who was the quarterback of the case and whose jury it was. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You know, you get a lot of egos, you get a lot of different kinds of lawyers, and it'll be interesting to see who calls the ball on that. But, you know, Mark Agnifilo, who's been in this from the beginning, is a brilliant lawyer. I'm sure Mark will orchestrate it in a way where, you know, he blends everybody's best in order to try and, you know, best serve Mr. Combs.
And I've kind of been following his analysis that he's been doing when it comes to his interviews with TMZ, especially on the Two Angry Men podcast that they have together with Harvey Levin. And Mark Geragos and Diddy have known each other for years. That's what he said, according to the podcast. Do you think it's possible that Diddy personally asked Mark Geragos to help represent him?
I don't doubt it for a second. I mean, you know, Mark has been really out there swinging the bat for Mr. Combs in the media, being a advocate for him in the media. And, you know, people pay attention to that. I've seen in cases before where lawyers aren't involved in a case and they're out there on the media circuit really punching for them. And a client will say, you know what, I want that guy. I want that guy as part of my team. He's been out there fighting for me. Plus, there's a past relationship. His partner obviously has been involved in Diddy's representation. So it's surprising it didn't happen sooner. And I hope for Diddy's sake that Diddy makes that decision, because he'll be adding a really good lawyer to a group of really good lawyers.
And I'm interested to know your thoughts. Do you think that Mark Geragos may come off a little too Hollywood for a New York jury?
Well, I mean, I think the nice thing about it is, you know, Mark has brought his game to the road. I mean, he you know, he's a California lawyer, but he's been all over the country, and I think he knows how to play different places. New York's a big city. It's not like, you know, he's showing up in some rural area, but he's in federal court here. And this isn't a state court case. And, you know, in federal court, you got to play it a certain way. Mark knows that. Plus, he's got some really able New York lawyers standing next to him. And so I don't think it'll be a problem for him at all, particularly being the fact that this is a federal prosecution, and Mark has been in the federal courts time and time again. They're no different anywhere, believe it or not, the federal courts. So state court, yeah, there might be a problem, but not at the federal level.
And we're just a couple of weeks, away from trial now. Literally, the countdown's on. What do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle for the defense? Do you think it's that everyone knows about Diddy's case, and even despite kind of the serious nature of the case itself, of the charges that Diddy's facing, it's had such a major reaction, it seems like, from the public, where it's either sparked memes or it sparked conversation or even just shock and awe about the case overall. But what do you think the biggest hurdle is going to be for the defense?
Well, I mean, we all know the most important thing that happens in a criminal trial is jury selection. And they've got to get lucky. They've got to find not only some jurors that have not heard about it, but more importantly, have not made their minds up about it, and that are receptive to, a defense that is going to be a little bit of a hybrid. I mean, the biggest problem they have in the case is a video. And it's a video that you can't walk away from. It's a video that is horrific. And they're going to have to try to defend this case, as you often do, by saying, hey, listen, our guy's not perfect. Our guy has made some horrific mistakes. Punish him for what he did, but not for what he didn't do. And I think what you'll see here is a real significant attack on the type of charges we've got here. We've got racketeering charges. I think what you'll see the defense doing is basically saying, hey, listen, a lot of these situations, although distasteful or consensual, this wasn't a racketeering enterprise. There was no pattern of racketeering. But yeah, the biggest hurdle they're going to have is jury selection. And I noticed that they put together a very significant jury questionnaire so they can try to, call a group of jurors together where you can try and get some fundamental fairness in that federal courtroom.
And what do you think of the questionnaire? What are your thoughts on it, especially since they're going to be asking whether or not jurors have seen the documentary, what their thoughts are about pretty much, it seems like essentially their thoughts on like pretty much sex, drugs, rock and roll. What are your thoughts on the questionnaire?
Well, the questionnaire is a great idea. They're just not going to get it all. If they get some of it, then they're going to be happy. I mean, you want to try and be able to do as much voir dire as you can because, folks are very unlikely to simply just be forthcoming in how they feel about a subject and what they know about a subject. So you want to be able to probe. I think the judge is probably going to limit it dramatically. They're not going to get a 70-page questionnaire, but they may get the kind of answers that help them make some important decisions about what kind of jurors they make that they're going to select in this case. And my guess is the judge will limit it dramatically, but it was a great idea to do the questionnaire. You should do a questionnaire in a high-profile case, particularly this one. It's every day that there's something in the news about it.
And according to Diddy's federal indictment, the superseding one, there are 4 alleged victims. Now, we do know one of the victims, and that being victim number 1. It's been reported that it's Cassie Ventura. She plans on testifying at trial. But I'm quite curious what your thoughts are on what her cross-examination could look like, especially given that she is pregnant now with her 3rd child. And I don't imagine whoever is going to be cross-examining her to come out too strong because of how it may look to a jury. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on it.
Well, with that videotape, and add to the fact that she's pregnant, I would be stunned if there was an aggressive attack on her. It would make no sense to me. It would be counterproductive. I think what you'll see is them kind of steering her to where she can help them. Steering her to places where she's going to have to concede some things that'll be helpful to the defense. Maybe getting rid of some of the what they're going to call false allegations that exist in the case. So I think, I would be stunned if you saw the typical, you're a liar, a frontal assault on somebody like that, because all the government's got to do when they're done is just press the play button and say, well, there you go. So I think it's going to be a lot smarter than that. And I think a lot more carefully and delicately done where she's concerned. Where it comes to anonymous complainants, I think you'll see a different track because it is rare that there is anonymity in a criminal case. And it is rare that someone would be able to testify without disclosing who they are. And that raises red flags for jurors quite often. And so I think you're going to see a different cross-examination between her and some of the folks that have not at least raised their hand in terms of who they are.
And I asked you, what the biggest hurdles the defense may have, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on what the biggest hurdle the prosecution has. Because, even though it is a federal case and normally when the feds come out swinging, they don't really miss. But what are your thoughts on what their hurdles could look like?
I think they're really hurdles that they usually don't have to deal with, and that is potential consent. This a lot of this is around the idea of whether or not this is consensual sexual activity. People coming in with their eyes wide open, engaging in sexual acts that they knew were going to occur. That'll be what the defense argues. I'm not suggesting that's always the case, but it's rare for federal prosecutors to have to deal with what I'll call a sex case, a typical sex case, where it's he say, she say I consented. I say I was too intoxicated to consent. We say quite the opposite, that you knew when you came to those parties what was going to happen at those parties. It's a very unusual federal case. Federal cases don't usually get tried along those lines. And so I think you're going to see a really interesting blend of what we typically look at as a state court prosecution being placed into a racketeering enterprise. And it'll be interesting to see if they can pull that off, because what might be really bad behavior may not be criminal behavior in the eyes of some jurors.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, especially like what the jury pool will look like, especially in terms of just their thoughts overall on this type of case. And given that there's this added layer of just a huge name, that being Diddy as the defendant, and you have had high-profile clients, celebrity clients as well too. How do jurors normally react to high-profile names going up for trial?
It varies jury to jury. I mean, you're going to find jurors who are going to want to get on that case because of what it is. You're going to find jurors that, prospective jurors that don't want to get anywhere near it. We saw how jurors reacted in the Simpson case, and yet we've seen, jurors in other cases that haven't been quite as fundamentally open-minded when they're dealing with celebrities. One thing that I've always noticed with celebrity cases is you usually get some really great lawyering on both sides. And you usually get pretty good juries because there's such great lawyering on both sides that no one's going to pick the typical bad juror for them. And it'll be interesting in this one. But at the end of the day, they're going to get a jury. Everybody says, well, never going to be able to get a jury because everybody's heard this. They're going to get a jury. They'll probably get a jury, probably win a couple of days. And that jury is going to be tasked with, I think, some really important decisions in trying to evaluate credibility and trying to evaluate whether or not this is really a racketeering crime or whether it's something else.
And do you think that Diddy can manage to get a fair trial? And just how high are really the stakes in this case?
Well, the stakes are enormous. This is his liberty. This is his liberty as he knows it. I mean, the consequences that he faces if convicted are drastic if he's convicted on the lead charges. So it's everything. It's everything that he has, everything that he knows, his life as he knows it, his family's life as they know it, are affected by this verdict. We're going to find out if he can get a fair trial. My guess is he will. My guess is there's a learned judge involved in this case. There's really good lawyers involved in this case. And I think he's going to get a fair shake. And at the end of the day, it'll be interesting to see what 12 fair-minded people think of this evidence and the verdicts that should be rendered as a result of it.
And every time we talk about Diddy, just overall, I just think back to before 2023. I think back to prior to Cassie's lawsuit, where Diddy just appeared like the mighty king of the music industry, the rap industry, hip hop industry, whatever it may be. He had the key to the city. He had impact awards. His name really did reign with so much power. Then Cassie's lawsuit came, and then everything felt like it was just moving so quickly. So many civil lawsuits. Then the raids happened. Then his arrest. Now we're looking at his actual federal sex trafficking trial. Kind of looking back at the scope of everything that's happened, does it come as a surprise to you that we're even still here at this point?
I might have said yes, it's a surprise had I not lived it. I saw it with the Cosby case. We saw it with the Simpson case, where you had people that were perhaps some of the most respected and revered people in the world. I mean, in the world. And yet, all of a sudden, at the flick of a switch, there's this avalanche of publicity that leads to criminal charges, that leads to more criminal charges, and then civil litigation. And the next thing you know, they've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. So we've seen it before, and my guess is we will see it again after this trial. Sometimes there's just a fall from grace that happens so quickly where someone just falls off a cliff in terms of their reputation. And that happened to him. He had the world in his hand, and then before you knew it, his world was upside down.
Yeah, and probably for him himself, never thought he'd get to this point, being in a federal detention center for these past few months, something probably he never ever saw coming. Brian McMonagle, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I do hate to put you on the spot, but I got to ask, if you had a crystal ball, what kind of verdict do you think that you could see coming back from the jury?
You know, I think it's going to be, if I had a guess, and I hate to guess because it's, you know, it's like going to Vegas. I'm not so sure that this isn't going to be a split verdict of some kind. I wouldn't be surprised if he was convicted on some counts and acquitted on others. That's a gut without having examined the evidence at all.
And, you know, again, just weeks away and probably weeks still more before we get that verdict. But I'm interested to see what all comes out of it. And I know you are as well, too. Brian, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's great to meet you.
Diddy remains in the federal detention center in Brooklyn, New York. Now, he appeared in court this week and pleaded not guilty to his charges under the second superseding indictment. His trial is supposed to begin next month, and if he's convicted, he faces decades in prison. His next hearing is scheduled for Friday. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.